Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms where I give you a heads up about upcoming shows and which date and time they will be aired. If you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, you can find links to the shows, MP3 files which you can download, or links to your favorite platform like iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and all other major sources. You can find information for upcoming and past talk show appearances as well as new book projects at MarlenePardo.com. You can also purchase books and merchandise there. And you can visit my author page on Amazon at Marlene Pardo Pellicer. Due to popular demand, I'm narrating my True Believer stories that I've collected throughout the years in a new series called Supernatural Storytime. You can find links at supernaturalstorytime.com. If you are into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate some of those at Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If you would like to read noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird, you can visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at MiamiGhostChronicles.com. I do want to thank you all for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. I'm doing good. Good. Even though you're not going to see this a little bit, as you know, because of the prior shows, that we are still experiencing something that's very unique, I think, for a lot of the whole world, but America especially, which is that we're still under, I don't know if you want to call it the effects of COVID-19 or a coronavirus. And now we're starting to be available to, they're opening up, depends on your state, etc., etc. But anyway, I'm okay. Because everybody asks, are you okay? Everybody's okay, thankfully. I tell me and my husband, if we ever have to go out for anything, even to the post office, it's like, did you bring the mask? Because, of course, we can't go anywhere without the mask. It's incredible how quickly you adapt to that reality, because you cannot... thankfully, I have a daughter-in-law that she's real crafty person, which I am not. And she immediately made these mine with flowers, of course, and my husband with a serious dark blue one. She made some masks for us to wear that we just wash, and that's what we use. But yeah, I stick them in my purse because, of course, you can't. There's the places that are open, you can't go in there without them. So yeah. So everything is good. This farm is good. Hot weather. And like I said before, we're experiencing a little bit of a drought here in South Florida. And so we go out there. We have like a little golf cart that we go out amongst the trees in the back. And we kind of worry just to make sure that they're not drying out. And if not, we have to get water to them. But yeah, besides that, like I said, because we have to stay home, giving it a lot of attention, and the animals, and it's really funny also. I've since we live in an agricultural area, a lot of people are buying eggs from me for fertilized chicken eggs, because they want to start. They've bought incubators, or they have broody hens, and they've decided that they now realize, first of all, because either eggs are really expensive or there's none in the supermarkets, that they want their own source of eggs. So it's like one of those things that you don't think about. Yeah, I would sell eggs every once in a while, but it wasn't not a big deal. Yeah, now it's become a big deal. So it's really weird how weird things happen. And of course, I've gotten offers I've sell the smaller chicks once I raise them a little bit. And it was one time I had somebody that they found my ad for the eggs. He goes, well, do you have any full-grown hens and chickens? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. Not right now. I have either eggs are fertilized, if fertilized eggs, or chicks. Oh no, because I want to eat some, because mine are free range. I want to eat some free range hens. And I was thinking to myself, well, thank God you told me that, because you weren't going to get my hens anyway. Because I'm such a pushover. I would never give up my hens if I knew somebody was going to kill them to eat them. I was like, no, you're not getting them. Sorry. No, all I got, I'm keeping them. So yeah, I'm a real pushover when it comes to that. But anyway, guys, let's get to the good part. And the good part is who I have with us tonight. And this is a lady by the name of Kerri Kannan. Now, she has over 20 years of teaching, coaching, speaking, and studying the nature of consciousness. She's well versed in the language of self-love and realization. After studying the spiritual things for many years, in 1998, she had her first major spiritual epiphany and realized that all challenges come from a lack of self-love. Amen to that. Over the years, her focus has remained on self-love. However, her definition of the self has radically transformed. Kerri has a gift that allows her to ask consciousness for change on behalf of other people who have told her that various areas of their lives have been miraculously healed as a result of listening to her work. People have reported spontaneous physical healing, financial windfalls, healed relationships, finding love relationships, and business success beyond their expectations. So please help me welcome Kerri tonight. How are you doing, Kerri?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much, Marlene, for having me on the show. It's so great to be here, and I hear all the life going on behind me.
Oh, yeah, I know. Everybody knows that. But the birds, and it's really funny because, the chair I had behind me, it'll capture like a chair behind me, and they'll see my dogs jump up, down, wriggle around. Sometimes they're in the background, they get more attention than I do. So everybody knows that I have. It's like sometimes, and then right about now they're gonna quiet down. But you'll hear my shows, and then all of a sudden you hear a rooster crow. It's like, what the hell is she? Yeah, it's because out here, I live on a what they call a micro farm. It's a little bit over 3 acres, which is not much by farm standards, but it's enough to have noisy animals and noisy parrots. People don't realize how noisy parrots are, you know. So yeah, it's like that's the norm. But anyway, I wanted to ask you, which I ask all my guests. How did you find yourself going into this field? Was it something from childhood, after adult, a triggering event? What happened?
Well, there were, I guess, different plateaus, and I guess there was one. It started off in probably when I left home after college. I started studying the spiritual themes. I moved from New York to the Cayman Islands. And it was really my first time alone in the world, where I got to understand who I was and discover a lot about myself. And I found myself in a group of friends who were, I was 23, and all of my friends were 50. They weren't 53, they weren't 48, they were all 50 years old. And so they were at a point in their lives where they were exploring their own spirituality and, sort of going on to that more adult aspect of self-discovery. So at 23, I was introduced to that world.
Okay.
And I read, I read all sorts of self-help books, and I was very involved. Like, we had a Tao Te Ching circle that we did with, all of these friends I had. One was an ex-monastic monk. One was a psychiatrist. One was a Japanese guy, and anyway, so we all kind of got together, and we were doing that, and at the time I was also studying A Course in Miracles, which sort of led me to the next phase of my discovery, where I discovered that all challenges were sourced in a lack of self-love, because so that was in like 1992, where I was living in Cayman, and then in around 1998, I had met the person who was to become my husband. And when we were getting married, he said, why don't you quit your job and figure out what you really want to do? because he made like 6 times what I made. And, he wanted me to be able to find what would be fulfilling for me. Or he wanted me to figure out what I wanted to do, and I wanted to find what would be fulfilling for me. And I realized that I wanted to find something that would allow me to grow the rest of my life, that would be fulfilling for the rest of my life. And so I did a sort of a journey of self-discovery to figure out what is that thing that would bring me most meaning. And I had been a student, like I said, of A Course in Miracles, and there was while I was looking to try and figure out what would bring meaning to my life, I came across this article by a man named John Snodgrass, who wrote a book called Your Career Star. And it was just a kind of a short article, but it was Course in Miracles related. And he said, in his article, he said something like, your special function, according to A Course in Miracles, is the exact opposite of whatever you perceive to be the reality of your own guilt, sin, or victimization. In other words, what's missing is your gift, your weakness is your strength, and your special dysfunction is your special function. And as a woman who grew up in the Western world, I've always had body image issues. And, I was like, what's my special dysfunction? And I was like, I'm fat. And I was like, no, that's not it. I don't like myself. And I was like, no, that's not it either. I don't love myself. And when I had that thought, I started jumping around my living room thanking everyone who had ever hurt me, because I realized that they were providing me the context to understand the content of my thinking. And without those very painful experiences that I had as a child, I would not have I would not be able to see what I was thinking about myself. So that kind of led me on this journey of self-love. And then as my journey sort of progressed, I had the thought that, okay, if I am, like A Course in Miracles teaches you that, I am the chair, I am the TV, I am the clouds, I am, Jupiter, I am this person who I'm speaking with, I am that sound, I am that flower, I am that thought. So, it's like a training that sort of teaches you that you are consciousness. So from those Course in Miracles teachings, I was like, okay, well, if I am, created in the image and likeness of God kind of thing, then I should be able to there should be a simple way for me to be able to sort of make things happen in my life. And so then, like, the next, 20 years was like a progression of trying to understand, like, with that thought sort of loosely held in mind, trying to understand the nature of consciousness, which is why I delved into trying to understand that, because I wanted to know, okay, if I am an aspect of this infinite being, and it lives through me, then I should be able to harness this in some way. So I guess the next sort of milestone that I had was I went, so the only sort of church or religion or spiritual experience that I could find as far as a church, like community church, was the Unity Church. So I had sort of told myself I was never going to go to church again, because I just didn't like the idea of sin, and it was contra to what I had believed. And I decided I was never going again. And then a girlfriend dragged me to a Unity Church, and I went, and I was like, oh, they conform to my way of thinking, so yes, I will go, Mm-hmm. And then in 2004, I went on a spiritual enrichment and education program at Unity. And these are really intense sort of course. It's like a week of coursework. And they are, I took 4 classes, and everybody takes 4 classes. So I took 4 classes, plus like a prayer group in the morning, and each class was 2 hours. So it was 8 hours a day, 5 days, for this 5-day week of really intense spiritual study. That was in alignment with Unity's teachings, because it was at Unity Village in Lee's Summit, Missouri. So it was also in line with my way of thinking already. And one of these classes, or 2 of these classes actually, were taught by this woman who's very well known in the Unity community. Her name is Eliza. And she taught the New Testament and Jesus' teachings, like one class and then the other one. So 1 2-hour class and then the one after that. And on Monday, she did not have her hand in a splint. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, she did. And somebody asked her on Wednesday, what happened to her hand. And she said that she had gotten into a car accident like 10 years before. And ever since then, she would have to wear the splint on her hand. And on Wednesday, we were going through Jesus' miracles. And I just want to, before I go into this, I just want to tell people, so my background is sort of Unity, which is sort of a spiritual-based, Christian. It's like Christian-based, a new thought. But the way that I approach my work is not Christian-based. So I have my foundation and my background, but I've worked with people. Like I had a Muslim marketing manager who I worked with, and she actually said to me that she didn't know if when we started working together, if my teachings would be appropriate for her, because, if you're Muslim, there are things that are sort of go against your religion and could be seen as heresy or whatever. But she found that when, from working with me, these teachings actually helped her to become a better Muslim, because it doesn't matter what you call that infinite consciousness. You can call it Allah, you can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it Jesus, you can call it whatever you want, So it from my perspective, it doesn't really matter how you relate to the infinite. It's just, I just relate to the infinite in the way that I, experience it. So I just wanted to say that before I kind of go into this story.
Okay.
So anyway, on Wednesday, we were going through all of these Jesus' miracles, and miracle after miracle after miracle, like we would read them, and there was definitely a method to his madness. So the method was that he would be presented with a problem or an issue or a challenge, and then he would go into meditation. He would come out with a knowing, and then he would do his little charismatic thing, and then the miracle, people perceived that the miracle had been done. And after the 1 hour break, because since each of these classes were 2 hours long, after 1 hour, people kind of need a refresher. So, we had a break at the 1 hour mark. And after going through all these miracles, I knew with every fiber of my being that we could do anything that he could do. We could do anything that he could do. And so I, found a quiet little spot, and I asked if there was anything that I could do to heal Eliza's hand, and I got a yes. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And I got just no. And I was like, really, just no? And I got just no. I was like, okay. So I walked back in the room. I held her hand. I looked her in the eye, and I said, Eliza, I don't know how, but I just know that your hand is already healed. And then somebody walked in like 2 seconds later and said, oh, Eliza, your hand is healed already. And then, she continued with the class. And then, we went home and came back on Thursday. And then on Thursday, she wasn't wearing her splint. And somebody asked her, what happened with her splint. And she said, it's so funny. I woke up today and my hand felt better than it had since before the accident. And I was like, that's very interesting.
Yes.
So, yes. So the next year or so went by, and she would send out these little, Jesus jokes and things like that. And I asked her, I was like, Eliza, do you remember when, I told you that your hand was in a splint, and I told you that your hand was healed, and, the next day you came in and it felt better? I was like, how's that going for you? Is that, did it stick? Like, what happened? And she's like, oh my goodness, I totally forgot about that. She's like, my hand is fine. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's, it's healed.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, yeah, exactly. So then for the next 10 years, I used that as my touchstone. And also through the next 10 years, I was going through like a horrible, divorce scenario with my ex-husband, which was actually a gift because it forced me deeper into my spiritual, because when I'm going through a hard time, I meditate more. I'm in tune more. I try and listen more and all of that. So I believe that, my hard divorce scenario, which was, would not wish it on anybody because it was sheer hell. I believe that actually propelled me to my next level.
Okay.
So the next level was I was experiencing some. So to give you a little bit of background on my life, I grew up in sort of a upper middle class family, and but we lived a rich lifestyle. So I grew up in a restaurant family, and we owned a high-end steakhouse where they served steak, lobster, and seafood. And my stepmother was a flight attendant for TWA, and my dad's restaurant was right down the road from the ski resort, and we lived on a lake, and we had a motorboat, and we would go, water skiing. So we lived on a lake, which was our primary, it was our primary house. It wasn't like a second house. So every day in the summer, I would water ski. Every day in the winter, if I wanted, we had passes to the ski resort, so I would snow ski. When there was no food in the house, I would go to my dad's restaurant and have steak and chocolate mousse.
Wow.
And when we went on vacation, it was cheaper to fly to Europe than it was to go to the Poconos. So, even though we didn't have lots and lots of money, we lived a life as if we did.
Right, because of the circumstances. Yes, I see what you mean.
Yes. So I never knew what it was like to not have money. So I was very, I grew up in a very privileged home. And so after I went through my divorce, when I married pretty much into the same scenario. Like my ex-husband made a lot of money, and I never had to worry about money. I was always cavalier, it was just always there. And then after I went through my divorce, my ex-husband did everything he could to try and destroy me any way he could, including financially. And it worked for a while. And I went into my meditation and things like that. So my next milestone was I found myself in this situation. I was like, listen, I would love to have, and I did this through a meditation. I had 2 hours one night. I didn't have my kids. And I went through meditation. I was like, I would love to have a best friend in my life who's a man who is just irresistibly magnetic to money, who I adore, who adores me, but who's either gay or married, because I didn't want to attach my finance to my romance.
I love that.
Yeah. So, I wanted this platonic relationship, but I wanted to have this adoration,
Right.
So I did this whole thing, and what came of that was the 5 Keys to Conscious Creation, which is on, you can get that on Kindle for $1.99. It's just a little workbook, and it's very succinct and it's very easy. But I'm going to go through the steps now, and then I'm going to tell you what happened. So the steps for that is, step number 1, when I was doing this meditation to kind of bring this person in, was I had to get clear on what I wanted. And that's the part where I was like, okay, I want a man because I respond much differently to men than I do women. I wanted him to be gay or married. And, I wanted to offer him something that was as valuable to him as him being, just sort of, rubbing his good money mojo off on me. Right. And, so I wanted that reciprocation, and I wanted that, to be just an aspect of me. Not that I had to do anything special, but it was just a part of who I was that, was a gift to him as well as his, magnetism towards money would be to me. And so step 1 is to get clear. Step 2 is to get rid of all the stuff that's in the way. So I needed to, part of my brain was like, well, who would love me enough to want to hang out with me and, help me with this? So I had to get rid of that. And, what guy who's gay or married would want to do that? So I had to get rid of those limitations, and whatever other limitations I had, I don't know how I'm going to meet this person. How could I possibly meet this person? And I had to release that limitation and things like that. So once I got clear and I let go of all that stuff, then so first was get clear, and that aspect of getting rid of all the stuff is part of the getting clear process, get rid of it, release everything that's in the way. So get clear, and then release everything that's in the way of it. So number 1 is get clear. Number 2 is release anything that's in the way of it. Number 3 is to feel it in your heart as if it has already happened. So then I just meditated on it, and I just felt it in my heart as if this person was already in my life. And I was like walking around my house, moving and saying, I love that, we have this great camaraderie. I love that I have something to offer him that that is just as valuable to him as what he's offering me. I love that, we're just the best of friends. And, I was saying, I love all of these things. So, that was, feel it in your heart as if it had already happened. So that's step number 3. So 1 is get clear. Number 2 is release anything in the way of it. Number 3 is to feel it in your heart as if it already happened, not in your head. And it helps sometimes to put your hand on your heart. So the 4th part is to just gently sort of turn that into a place of gratitude. So instead of saying, I love this, I love that, blah, 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 just kind of feel a sense of gratitude for it already happening. So that's step number 4. Feel it in your heart as if, feel it in your heart with a sense of gratitude. And then the last step, number 5, which is the hardest one, and which is where people get stuck, is to let it go. So I, at the time, used emotional freedom techniques. And, I tapped, and I was like, even though I love this idea, I deeply and completely accept myself, and I release and let it go. And, because I was buzzing for like 45 minutes, and it was like midnight, and I couldn't get to sleep. So I had to let it go just to get to sleep. Okay. And so those were the 5 steps. And then the next day, I woke up, and I had a friend who was working with me on this network marketing business that I had gotten involved with. And she said, Kerri, I want to set up a meeting with you to, talk about this. And this person was in my upline, but she actually didn't make any money from me. So, because, it was a network marketing thing, I was phased out for her. And I said, Nancy, I really appreciate all that you're doing for me. And this just kind of came from out of nowhere. I said, I appreciate all that you're doing for me, but I really would love, I think that you should pass me on to someone else who will actually make money from my efforts. And she said, okay, I'm going to put you in touch with this guy. And I was like, okay. So she got in touch with him, and then, he texted me or whatever, and we texted a little bit. And then I just called him out of the blue, like 2 weeks later or something like that. And when he heard my voice, he sat up and he said, hold on a second. And he sat up in bed and he started to talk to me. And I didn't realize at the time, but him sitting up in bed was very significant. So, from that, we seemed to have a good camaraderie, and, he was trying to help me with this business and everything. And we talked for about 6 weeks before he came back to my area, because he lives on the other side of the country, and he's got his businesses over in my side of the country. And so then when he came here, I went with him to this big, it was like a big event, like a convention for that business. And he asked me if I would be his assistant during that time. And I was like, sure, because I was, I had the time to be able to do that. And it occurred to me later that, so he is the type of person that, like, when he walks around Dick's Sporting Goods looking for fishing gear, his phone goes ding, 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 ding. And I asked him, I'm like, why does what's going on when your phone is dinging like that? And he's like, oh, every time my phone dings, I earn $180. Wow. And so, yeah, I was like, oh. So the very next day after I did that 5 Keys to Conscious Creation process, the universe already had things in motion for me. Like it had already taken action by me just intuitively saying, Nancy, I appreciate all that you're doing for me, but I need somebody who's going to make money from me. And this guy, he was in my upline, but so the reason that it was significant that he sat up in bed was because he had 3 years prior, he had open heart surgery. And for those who are familiar with, the people who have had open heart surgery, like there's a limited life expectancy after that happens. It's like 5 years. And the reason is because of the anxiety. Like your body goes through such a trauma from being ripped open like that he was having panic attacks that were lasting an hour and a half.
What?
So when I was being his assistant, I would just be me. I was just being my natural self. And as soon as he would start having a panic attack, because I was riding around in the car with him to all these appointments, I would just put my hand on the front and the back of his chest. And, his panic attacks went from an hour and a half to like 3 minutes. And so by the time he left, he was in my area for about a month or 6 weeks. By the time he left, he could manage on his own, and the panic attacks were only like a minute and a half or 2 minutes. So, but when he said, yes, exactly. And when he sat up in bed, when he heard my voice, so he told me that something in him said, this person is, a significant person in your life. And and he was actually laying in bed waiting to die. So when I called him, it kind of revived him. So from that experience, I knew that, okay, remember in the beginning, I said I knew that there had to be a simple way that we could sort of harness consciousness and use it for ourselves if we were that thing. And so that was my next step along the way. Then a few more years passed, and I found myself again, sort of financially struggling. And I was, at that point, my ex-husband had temporarily wrangled my children away from me. And I was like, okay. And I saw a pattern where I was in these dysfunctional relationships with men and money. And I was like, ooh, I see this dysfunctional relationship where I was in this control dynamic with men and money. And I wanted to have a positive relationship with men and a positive relationship with money. And, I saw this just weirdness. And so I was like, ooh, I see this pattern in myself and I want it gone. And so I went to Silent Unity, which is part of that Unity organization. And I sent in a prayer request and I said, I see this pattern in myself. I want it gone and I want it replaced with something better. And within 10 minutes of doing that prayer request, I came across a woman who did very similar work to what I do now. And we're going to get into what I do now in a little bit.
Okay.
And what she did was she did this form of affirmative prayer. And as soon as she did that prayer, I felt all of my panic around money going away. Because what was happening was, I realized I had this, out of the fear of not having enough money, I was holding on to these dysfunctional relationships because I was afraid that there wouldn't be something on the other side.
Right.
So immediately, I came across this woman who was doing the same kind of work that I do now. And after listening to her, my fear of not having enough money went away, my panic and fear, and everything, I found myself in a state of infinite peace and patience. Also, at the same time, I had been doing web design work for this gentleman who, I was doing these beautiful, elaborate, $5,000 websites, and I was trying to get my coaching off the ground. And I was also doing some audio editing for another woman. And at the same time, I had been receiving child support from my ex-husband, but since he wrangled my kids away temporarily, that was not happening anymore. So, with the client that I had, I said, listen, I need to either be making more money for these websites, because I was only making $1,200 and per website, and it took me a month to do a website. Wow. And I said, I either need to make more money or I need to do less elaborate websites. And he was like, well, I'm doing you a favor. I could go to India and have somebody there do it for me. And so I decided to,
Okay.
Yeah. So I decided to let go of that client.
Okay.
And then at the same time, the money that I was receiving from my ex-husband went away. So all of a sudden, after I listened to this woman's audio, I found myself making 5% or somewhere between 5 and 10% of what I had previously been receiving every month, because I only had that one client left, which was the woman who I was doing audio editing for. And so instead of doing something like a normal person would do, I found myself sitting on my couch for like 3 weeks just asking, in a state of infinite peace and patience, is there anything that I can do to facilitate the, flow of abundance in my life? And I got, just wait. And I'd wait 5 minutes, and I was like,
I was going to say, that's a difficult thing to do when you're
yeah. I was like, is there anything I could do now to facilitate financial abundance in my life? And I got, just wait. And I got, just wait for like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And from this woman who I was doing the audio editing for, she had a client or a guest on there who, because I was doing the audio editing, I listened to all of her interviews. She had a guest on there who fascinated me, and I was doing a podcast at the time as well. And I asked him if he would be a guest on my show, and he was like, sure, but he wanted to do a pre-interview. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I could do that because I have nothing better going on. I'm just sitting on my couch meditating. So I was talking to him, and we got along really well, and he said, how many people do you know like that woman? And I said, I don't know, hundreds. Those are my people. And he said, how would you like to, organize, interviews with people like that for me? He said, I'll pay you $500 a pop. I was like, really? How many do you want? And he said, as many as you can get. So I was able to get him about 10 a week, which I will let the audience do the math. $500 times 10 a week, times, however long I did it. That's a considerable chunk of change. Yeah. And so in 2.5 weeks, I went from receiving like $250 a month for doing the audio editing to over $20,000 a month.
Wow.
In just by sitting on my couch, meditating and asking.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that led me to my next step, which was I was obsessed with trying to find out as much as I could about this woman who did the stuff that I do, that I now do. I was like, who is she? Where can I find more of her? And how can I do private sessions? Because, I was making over $20,000 a month, so I could afford her $1,000 an hour that she was promoting on her website for her work.
Okay.
And, but I tried to schedule an appointment with her. She was unavailable. $1,000 an hour, you would think that they would, be available for an appointment, but, she wasn't. So then I tried to see if there were any group programs that she had going on, and she didn't. And so then, since I couldn't pay her, and, I was just like, okay, let me just listen to all of the recordings that I can find of her online. So I listened to, a few recordings, and she really started to irritate me because people would ask her in her interviews, how can I learn how to do this? Or, can I have a script? Or is this something that I can learn how to do? Or can you teach me? Or do you have, and she said, her blanket response was, well, I could tell you how I do it, but I'm the only one with the gift, so you wouldn't be able to do it anyway. And I was like, well, that was the biggest load of crap I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was BS because I had already done it. I had healed somebody's hand in like a spontaneous healing. So I knew that I could do it. I just needed to claim that for myself because, I'd spent 10 years trying to figure out how I got there. And, by this person telling me I couldn't do it, I was like, oh, yeah, well, screw you. I'm going to figure it out myself,
Exactly.
So that's what I did. I started practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing gratitude and just, feeling it in my body. Like the same thing that I did with that 5 Keys to Conscious Creation, only I kind of smashed it all together into one, feeling that only takes between 2 and 10 minutes, depending upon the consciousness alignment that I do. And I call them consciousness alignments. Mm-hmm. So I started practicing, and then I asked for friends to be guinea pigs. And they were all like, ooh, pick me. And my favorite story from that time, I have other favorite stories now that are really phenomenal. My favorite story from that time was I had this friend, we were doing a collaborative book project. And that book is called Embraced by the Divine, The Emerging Woman's Gateway to Power, Passion, and Purpose. And the primary author is Michelle Mayor. Okay. And she was asking me, she was like, I'm having relationship challenges with my daughter, and I would like for our book to be a bestseller. And so I asked her what was going on with her daughter. And, she told me that she had just turned 18 and she was kind of sitting around the house really doing nothing. And she had given her daughter the option of either getting a job or going on welfare because she couldn't afford to support her daughter's lifestyle. And they're in Australia, so, it's different than it is in the United States. And so her daughter chose to go on welfare, and because she had a shopping habit. She's a beautiful kid, and she had this shopping habit, and she liked beautiful clothes. And so her sitting at home doing nothing and just collecting a check was really driving a wedge between my friend and her daughter. So I said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to align her to find her 18-year-old dream job, and she doesn't even have to look for it. It's just going to land in her lap, and she's going to be so happy that it's going to spill over into her relationship with you. How does that sound? And she was like, well, that sounds great to me. So that's what I did. I did a consciousness alignment for her to find her 18-year-old dream job, whatever that was, and that she wouldn't have to look for it. It would just land in her lap, no effort on her part whatsoever. Okay. And so then with the book, she wanted that to be a bestseller. And I was like, well, that's nice, but why don't we make it a #1 international bestseller? And she was like, can we do that? I said, we can ask. We can ask. So about 3 weeks later, she called me up and she said, I have to tell you what happened with my daughter. She said she was in her favorite boutique spending her check, and the shop owner approached her and asked her if she would be interested in modeling for their internet and print presence. She would get paid, wow. She'd get a discount, and if she wanted to start a modeling portfolio, she could do that too. So it was like, check, dream job, 18-year-old, yes. Done. Yes. And then the next one was that, so it took a little longer for our book, because everything has its own incubation period. And, but on American Thanksgiving 2015, our book went to #1 in the United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, and the Netherlands. Wow. So this stuff really works. Yeah.
And you know what? I think it's fantastic that you ask for it, but you don't get hung up on exactly how it's going to happen. You kind of leave that
everybody
open.
Has their own way. Yeah, absolutely. Because the universe, everybody has, and it's funny because when people listen to me, it's unique for everyone. Mm-hmm. So more recently, I had somebody who was he was a struggling artist. He listened to one of my podcasts, just like this one, mm-hmm. and he. Like what he wanted was for his work to take off. And again, he's a struggling artist, but man, his artwork is freaking phenomenal. His name is Paulo Cunha. And he said that the very next day after listening to my podcast, he got a call, like things started to go into motion. And he was asked, I don't know if this all happened the next day, but he said that the very next day things went into motion. But within the next few weeks, like I think it was like a month between the time that he listened to it and the time that I spoke to him, maybe it was 6 weeks, between the time that he listened to that and the time that he got in touch with me. He was asked to do a solo show in Portugal. He was mm-hmm. also asked to do a solo show in the Maldives, and he was asked to have one of his artworks on permanent display at the Louvre in Paris.
Whoa! Yes.
And he also made a really great friend connection with an artist as well. So he said that, immediately things just took off for him. And he attributes that to this work that people are about to experience. So anyway,
incredible. That's incredible. Because I know sometimes people want certain things, but they get hung up that it's got to happen a certain way. In other words, they want to, how can I say, they want to be too controlling somehow?
Yes. Yes, and that's why you need to let it go. So that's what's so difficult for people. So I have people sometimes will come back to me again and again and say, oh, I'm having issues with, this or that. And it's like, okay, how are you doing at letting it go? Like, you're still looking for it. As long as you're clinging to it, it can't, like, the universe can't do its thing.
Right.
So letting go is really the key after you've gone through the whole work. And, a lot of people, I'll do the thing, like, thank you, it's already happened. But people need to, at that point, you need to let go and trust the universe. And the best way that I found to do that is through emotional freedom techniques. That even though I love this idea and I want this thing to happen, I deeply and completely accept myself and I release and let it go. Like, you have to let it go, because if you don't let it go, it can't come through.
Right.
So.
Right.
And would you like for me to do a consciousness alignment for your audience? I'm open to doing whatever you want, whether it's, finances, career, health, and well-being, maybe getting on the other side of this pandemic and having just, the universe open up with gifts or whatever.
I want to tell you something. This thing of a pandemic, and I really, and I hear about it, is that I think there's a lot of people, and then I talked about it because my field is mental health. And I was telling people, I say, you know what? Eventually, besides the fact that I said there's a lot of people that obviously there's going to be economic challenges depending what you worked in. You might not have a job, you might have a job, but I said, I think there's going to be like a certain portion of uncertainty because this happened so quickly. We all went from, God, Christmas, New Year's, pandemic. It was like, what?
Right. And a really strong economy, pandemic. Yeah.
Right. I'd say, I was, as a matter of fact, I closed out my last show where I was telling people, I said, don't think that you might even need a little bit of therapy. I said, don't take it the wrong way, because there's going to be people out there that all of a sudden, even if everything turns out okay, maybe for their job, or they're able to go back to their job, it depends. I know not everybody, they almost feel like any minute now, like how, all the planning that we kind of naively did before. Now people are going to be wondering, well, is this going to happen again? Well, man, and I think for a lot of people subconsciously, I consider myself a subconscious behaviorist, that is always going to be playing in the back of their mind. And I do agree with you. I think that a lot of the things that we draw to us or manifest has driven a lot by our expectations of what we think we deserve. Yeah, like you said, there's a host of things that can direct what our expectations are, either consciously or subconsciously. And of course, unfortunately, fear limits us a lot of times because we're humans. Some people are more fearful than others depending on things that have happened to you. But if I think that especially, whether it's the emotional freedom technique or anything else, as far as maybe you just that inner, how can I say it? Like you said, where you stop letting go of fear, and you might not be able to name exactly what it is that you're scared of, because sometimes you really don't know,
Right.
You don't know what's the next thing, but all of a sudden, like letting it go, that just to trust that everything's going to be okay. Like, go ahead with your life. Don't worry that, okay, am I going to get slammed economically, besides maybe the health risk, economically again, where I can trust that I can make plans. Like I tell people, I want to go on vacation. People before you would say, I'm going to go on vacation, or, plans that people make in their lives that I think a lot of people now, even when this thing kind of like smooths out, they're still going to be kind of hesitant about.
Yes.
Because it's going to be like, well, yeah, but what if, like even now, Mother's Day, all these significant holidays, everybody's like, what are you going to do? Not much.
Yeah.
So it's, if we could discuss, or if you could go into something that people can work on, to let go, whatever the fears are. Like you said, each person is different as to what they fear might happen. Some people it might be financial. Some people it could be health-wise. More,
Yep.
I want to say like a trust in like everything's gonna be okay.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do, so people don't even, with this work, people don't even have to work on anything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they might need to work on is letting go of the outcome. So,
Right.
but what I do with this work is I actually access the higher part of you. So you just live your day, you do the things that you do naturally, and it seems like miracles just land in your lap. You know, kind
Yes.
of like with that Paulo Cunha guy, like it wasn't like, he contacted the Louvre and told them to, here's my painting. They contacted him. And it's
Right.
just, the universe, it aligns your consciousness to be in harmony with your desires. So what
Absolutely.
I'll do then is I'll do a consciousness alignment for letting go of the fear, however that shows up in one's life, wherever one is feeling that they're constrained or limited, or wherever their greatest fear is coming from, to let that go, replace that with a sense of ease and knowing that everything will be all right, bring people into presence, and being open to receiving the gifts that are banging on the doors to try and come into their lives. How's that?
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So everybody who's listening, in order to receive a consciousness alignment, there is one active part that you have to do, which is actually listen to me. And so don't be chasing toddlers around. Don't be doing your dishes. Don't be vacuuming the floor or listening to this in the background. You need to listen to my words and say yes to yourself while you're listening. And that's it. Saying yes activates your free will, so it allows your individual consciousness to know that you want these gifts. So here we go. And say yes as I'm speaking. Don't wait for me to tell you to say yes, because sometimes people are like, oh, when do I say yes? It's like, when I
Don't
start
worry.
speaking,
Yes.
that's when you say yes.
Yeah. Just stick
So,
that
okay, here
yes
we
in there
go.
on the pause. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, divine consciousness that lives in, through, and as me and everyone who is hearing my voice, that is both the voice that speaks and the ear that hears. It is all potentiality in every single moment of now. Thank you, thank you, thank you for releasing this person now from any fears that they may have that interfere with their ability to live a peaceful life. Now, whether those are financial, whether it has to do with health and well-being, whether it has to do with their relationships, whether it has to do with their safety, or whatever that may have to do with. Thank you for releasing this person from those fears now. Thank you, it's already done. Thank you, it's already done across all time, space, dimension, and reality, going down their mother's side of the family and their father's side of the family, going back 10,000 generations. Release the entire family lineage, going back 10,000 generations, from any fears that they may have brought to this moment of now, whether they're genetic or energetic inheritance, contracts, curses, parasites, limiting beliefs, stories, or anything that may be in the way of them being able to be in a sense of peace and ease and receptivity. Thank you for deleting, uncreating, and transmuting anything in the way of that. Now, thank you for aligning them in every vibrating molecule, every strand of DNA, every atom of their body. Thank you for aligning them to be in peace and harmony with receiving the gifts that this transformation is bringing into their life now. Thank you, it's already done. Thank you, it's already done now. Thank you for opening this person's consciousness and opening their life in ways that they never even imagined. Thank you for allowing them to experience greater prosperity, greater health and well-being, greater, more connected relationships with themselves, with their families, with their inner being. Thank you, it's already done. With their life, thank you, it's already done now, across all time, space, dimension, and reality, in every level of consciousness, every strand of DNA, every vibrating molecule, and every spinning atom. And thank you for hardwiring this person to trust that the universe is living in, through, and as them, and wants and desires the things that they desire. Thank you for deleting, uncreating, and transmuting anything in the way of that, any stories, any limiting beliefs, anything that may be in the way of them being able to be at peace and at ease and mindful and live a meaningful life. Thank you, it's already done. Thank you, it's already done now. And thank you for showering this person with gifts that are unique to them, gifts that are unique to them, that are something even better, that are something even better now. Thank you, it's already done. Thank you, it's already done now. Thank you, it's already done now. And so it is. Okay, take a deep breath and push it all out. And take another deep breath and push it all out. How'd that feel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Everybody has this ability, by the way. Everybody has this ability. And I do teach it. And I have many different programs that, different levels of people,
Right.
being able to access this work. Yeah.
And you know what, again, Kerri, I love that you stress you don't have to give a detail of how you think that this has to come about. You can leave that open-ended and let it go, because sometimes people get too caught up in the how. They can't, in other words, if they think that if they don't detail how, then
that it won't get done. Yeah.
Then it won't get done.
Yeah. And that's why I leave it open like this, because we don't know. So I've learned, I'm old enough to have learned from my life that I might think that I really want something, and then something else shows up and I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome, Yes. So, yeah.
Right. That painter that you described.
Yeah.
Do you think that he would consciously have thought he was going to get contacted by the Louvre? Come on.
I don't think in a million years that he thought that he would be contacted by the Louvre.
No, he would. He may have asked, like he said, for an exposition or to get going. But if somebody would have told him, the Louvre, he'd have been, okay, come on, no. I'm a realist, He would have poo-pooed the idea, thinking that was way beyond, he wasn't even going to try for that.
Yeah, he was struggling like a month before, and then he's contacted by the Louvre. I mean, wow, it doesn't get any better than that,
Of course. But if you, like you explained, that open-ended and then letting it go is like, don't get caught up in the details. But sometimes there's things happening out there, once you put this out, that brings either events or people into your reality.
Exactly.
You cross paths. I know some people, how they describe synchronicity, where you're at the right place at the right time, whatever the case might be, that you cannot, it's not an on-demand thing. It's just, and of course,
it just happened.
And what you described also, when you sat there for 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, that there's this trust in believing this, what I feel or what I want, or it's going to happen. Because let me tell you something, a lot of people, they would have said, oh, nothing's going to happen, or I'm getting caught up in wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me clarify on that. So when I sat there for 2 weeks, it wasn't like I was trying to force myself to sit there for 2 weeks. So I am not the type of person normally who would be able to just sit there and be calm for 2 weeks. It was, the universe took care of that. Like that was the thing to do. Like the thing to do is to get up and go to the bathroom, brush your teeth or whatever. That was just a thing to do because the universe aligned me to be sitting on my couch.
Well, for some people,
like
it's that, that they think that to get something accomplished, you have to do something. And if that knowing is telling them, wait, they start doubting like, wow, okay, this is nothing's happening, or like kids, are we there yet? That kind of thing that, I see where, and especially what you were describing where you needed something to take place and pretty soon, like, okay, this is not like, oh, well, I want to go to Europe next year and I hope, I hope to have the money to go. It sounded something much more immediate than, let's say, a vacation, or more important as far as plans that you had for your life, which is, and I want to mention, I love what you described when you were talking about breaking of energetic or genetic lineage vows, or anything like that sometimes people do not realize that that does play.
I never believed in curses before, and then I had like 3 people like telling me about curses, and I was like, okay, I should include that.
Yes. People, some people it sounds so well, or that somebody, let's say in your family lineage, you never met. This person might have been come and gone long before you ever made an appearance. That what they did, knowingly or unknowingly, could affect you or your family down the road. A lot of times I've heard also people have taken, vows of poverty, or somebody in their lineage, genetic, or made vows of poverty. Because remember, at one time, poverty, especially among religious orders, was considered next to holiness. That kind of, of approach. And that they're affected. That somehow or other they're affected by it just because of. So yeah, people don't. That's so important. And I know people think, what? It's like yeah. So, which is I've been Kerri, I've been showing copies of the book that you have, the workbook, and let me ask you: is that something? When you say you offer, does a person purchase the book and take the class separately, or is it either or?
If people go to my website, there are a couple ways. So there are a couple of different ways that you can, approach me. The workbook is actually free. It's always been free, so you can get the workbook for free on my website. And so if you were to go to divinewithin.com and sign up for my newsletter, you will get 5 free consciousness alignments, one for health and well-being, one for relationships, one for finances, one for joyful fulfillment, and one for spiritual connection. And then you'll also get the Uncovering the Divine Within workbook. So that's free.
Okay.
If people wanted to participate in my monthly group calls, which is kind of like I take that consciousness alignment that I did, but I open up the call for people to put in requests, and it typically goes about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, maybe 45 minutes if I don't have very much engagement that month or whatever. But it's like back to back to back to back to back consciousness alignments that are geared towards what the group is asking for. And then there's, so that's at commandmiracles.com. And then if people wanted to learn how to do this themselves, you can contact me, sign up for the newsletter at divinewithin.com, and then, contact me and say, Kerri, I'd like to learn how to do this, and then we can have a conversation about that.
Perfect. Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. I think that's one of those things that I want to say, sometimes, people have what they call the epiphany, like, whoa, angel singing, I get it. But I think sometimes for us, you could have it, but I think sometimes you have to go through that process. Like something like what you described happened with you, that it was certain things happened and, certain events in your life propelled you forward or made you react a certain way that looking back, you realize in reality that helped me out.
Yes.
Especially when we have troubles where you're thinking, oh my God.
Yes. Yes. I mean, when I was going through all of my struggles with my ex-husband, honestly, I would not wish that on the world, like on anybody in the world, because it was the toughest thing that I've ever had to go through. And and I don't want to invite him over for dinner, but he's probably the greatest gift. Right. I would not be who I am or where I am if it were not for him being so good at what he did.
Right, yes. And I know that when you're in the thick of things like that, whatever the case might be, you're thinking, sure, I'm going to be happy about this
I'd like to see him dead.
But whether it's personal relationships or things, other circumstances that happen to people, you sometimes later on, it depends, of course, on what it is. There's always something good to be taken from it. In other words,
yes.
And what I like is, sometimes, I tell people, because especially with classes and thankfully also with the internet, it helps. You have the extroverts that are good with group settings, and then there's the introverts, which are more like, I want to do this by myself kind of thing, because that's just their personality.
Right.
And sometimes, especially if they're facing things about themselves, like, Like they don't want anybody to know. You know how people sometimes are some people don't care. They'll talk about like, oh, the blah, 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 blah. And I think, and I'm a real jerk, and now I realize it, and I have these shortcomings, and I need help quick. And then there's the other people that are in the corner going, I'm not going to talk about that about myself. Forget that. Yeah. So, everybody's got, but at the end, we and you mentioned something which I'd like to, which is, and I've mentioned it, the way we talk to ourselves, that inner dialogue sometimes, that you mentioned something about self-love, that I think that sometimes it does, people really nice people, sometimes they really, they talk to themselves, or they have this inner dialogue with themselves that's anything but kind.
Right. Yes. So what I learned about self-love, so at first I thought it was geared towards my body, because I was body-centric. But I realized that, through, especially this work has helped me to see this, that self-love has to do with just loving every aspect of your life. Because your life is you. You can't separate yourself from your life. Right. So regardless of where you are in life, if you can accept it, because that's what self-love is, self-acceptance. Accept it for what it is, and accept you for who you are and where you're at. Yes. Then you can, grow from that. So, honestly, this work, if people are afraid of woo-woo, this is woo-woo off the charts, right? So this is as woo as it gets.
I love it.
And, some people are like, whoa, that's really weird, which I'm okay with that. But since I have worked on self-love so much, I'm okay with it. I don't care, because I know that if a thought is coming through me, it's already created. It's already there in the universe for me to just grab, because the universe is living through me, and it's asking me, hey, would you like to grab onto this idea? Because this idea is also you. So every idea, every potentiality is also you. You are that consciousness. So from my perspective, and since that's my perspective, that I am consciousness, which I learned through A Course in Miracles, I allow everything. I allow everything. And that allowance is, to me, self-love, because everything, even the crappy stuff, is the self. Even this coronavirus, it has gifts. It is myself, Yes. So it has gifts to deliver to all of us. And I'm just grateful that, I'm living through this now, because I can see this global transformation that's, happening, this transition that we're going through. And I'm really excited and grateful to see what's on the other side.
Of course. I mean, everybody gets affected by different things, different ways, different circumstances, depending on where you are in your life. And there's so many, possibilities, you can extrapolate from there as individuals are. And of course, and that's something really important. This is not a one size fit all in that sense, because everybody is, like you said, at this moment, we are a result of so many different experiences. And also something that you mentioned, which I think is so important, it's the now, because sometimes people get caught up as in, when this future event is my reality, then things will, then it'll be important. Then whatever the aha moment, and really, all we have is the now. And
and really, there's no such thing as time. It's just a sort of a moving through space kind of thing. So if when I do my work, when I say now, a lot of people feel like an energetic punch when I do that. Or I've been told a slap, like a reality slap, and that's why I use that, because it's not in the future, it's now. It's like this life, it's now. It's like align things now. So
exactly. Wow, Kerri, it has been fantastic to talk to you. Wow,
thank you, Marlene. It's been great. It's just like whizzes by.
Let me tell you something. This is I. There's so much that you are. It's. I mean. The approach, I think, is great. I think a lot of people, I hate to say this, need this, okay? Because sometimes and I want to say this especially, and I know there's people out there that are going to go, ugh, I'm going to go, for my little control freaks out in the audience, you need this. Like, let it go. In other words, sometimes they want to control so much, and then when things are not happening the way they want, or the way they've planned, or the way they've tried so hard, and they can't figure it out, like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Then you need to do this. You need to let go, and maybe either face something that about you that you just don't want to look at, whatever it might be, and let it go. Don't hang on so tight to how that outcome is supposed to take place. In other words, get out of your own way, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we kind of do that every so often. With even if we think we're not, we do, for various reasons. It has been so great. Anyway, I will have a link to your website on the credits of the show. But again, if you could repeat what your website is for the podcast.
Yeah.
Listeners.
So for the Uncovering the Divine Within workbook, which is a workbook about it's a self-love workbook, and really it helps you to identify the stuff that you've been hanging on to that kind of holds you back, and let go of that. Okay. And that's free. It's at divinewithin.com. And also when you sign up there, you get 5 consciousness alignments, one for health and well-being, one for relationships, one for financial well-being, one for joyful fulfillment, and one for spiritual connection. And then, you'll be, if you want to take that further, then, so that's at divinewithin.com. And if you were interested in the group calls or anything, those are at commandmiracles.com. And if you wanted, to do private, mentoring with me, just, respond to the email from divinewithin.com, and we'll talk about that. So.
Fantastic. Again, thank you so much. I want to wish you, I don't know, do you have any projects, any books, anything planned for 2020?
No, I'm actually, I am one of those people. So my other job, I am actually a designer in a large multi-billion-dollar corporation that is open right now. So I'm just dealing with trying to keep my stress level down, because it's very stressful working right now. In the mental health field, that's what I'm feeling. I'm starting to understand why my dad, as he gets older, is getting grumpy, because it's the stress of getting older, Yeah. So I'm just seeing the stress of just all of the, everything. So I don't have any projects going on. My project right now is just kind of live my life and, just kind of maintain the status quo for now, because it's a very stressful time, whether you're at home or whether you're working, regardless of where you are. Yeah. So. Yeah,
absolutely. But then again, good luck to you. And thank you so much, Kerri.
Thank you, Marlene. And it was really a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
On the contrary, it was my pleasure. Thank you again, and take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I love it. She said something woo, and it was like, man, lay on the woo. Lay on the woo, because I'm telling you right now, for all that I'm an analytical when it comes to therapy and mental health, and, the part the subconscious plays as far as our behavior and our decisions and a lot of what we do or don't do. And by this, I mean that a lot of things that sometimes people think of as woo is really our subconscious mind that makes up a lot of what motivates us in certain directions or gets in the way. And we think, our conscious mind is the one in the steering wheel. It's not. But on the flip side of that is I've been exposed to woo. And I mean, besides the paranormal stuff, the woo also when it comes to manifestation, exactly what she was talking about. And I'm not kidding. We all have, some people are more, and then I don't mean this in a negative way, more controlling than others. And sometimes no control at all is just as bad, where you just don't make any effort and whatever, and it's all good. And, of course, like in life, all extremes are not good. No lack of control, as in no direction, or it's preparedness. Mind you, I said preparedness, not worry. Two different things. Or extreme control. Whether it's extreme control not only about yourself, about everything, or about with people around you, your family, or everything. You get caught up in, which can make you very anxious. And I've mentioned this before with the hypnotherapy. I had a lot of clients that it was funny because they would come to see me for different things that weren't working out. A lot of times relationships, things like that. And they had their personality was, they were very successful. Let's say their jobs, because they were controlling. They were like, I've made plans and I've stuck to this, and this is going to happen, and then I'm going to do this, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And that part worked out like a charm, but they put a lot of stress on themselves. And they for example, they couldn't quite get the relationship thing done. Somehow it always escaped them. Or the relationships they would end up with just fizzled out, or like that. Oh, we end up best friends. And I said, how often does this? Oh, like the last 3 relationships I've had, the guy turns out to be my best friend. It's like, do you see a pattern there? It's like, all right, okay. It has to do a lot with control and letting go. And some people get very anxious to let go, even a little bit, because let's face it, they feel that at some point they feel like controlling lowers my anxiety because I'm in control. And if I let go of the control, God knows what will happen. Oh, and sometimes that control extends even to relationships, because, for example, some of them, and you'd be surprised how easily we pick up on this very soon after meeting somebody. And you can say, how quickly? I mean, I didn't know this person. Be like, you were looking subconsciously for certain characteristics or personality traits, whereas the control extended to, I'm looking for the type of person that I know I really won't fall madly in love with. But I know I'm in control and I won't fall in love, because unfortunately for some personality types, being madly in love means I'm going to be out of control, and that is very scary for them. Okay, so from the get-go, when they're out there, either they go to a place to have a few drinks, or even blind dates, or whatever you got online, somewhere along the line, they're already picking up on the. And of course, they'll, oh, no, I'm ready to meet somebody. I want a relationship. Everything else in my life it's done. I've got a career, and I've got this, and I've got that. So now I am ready for the relationship. And by the way, they've been ready. And somehow that just doesn't come. Like I said, they end up with their best friend. That's an example of a couple of times that I had clients like that. And it was like, okay, don't get me wrong. We all have our preferences as far as looks and personality traits that we feel we're more compatible with. Nothing wrong with that. However, sometimes you have to let go and feel out of control with somebody you meet, which means somebody you could really fall in love with. And for some people, that's a very scary thought. That's a scary, no, let me, about my tongue. Scary feeling. It's not a thought, it's a feeling. And that's what gets to them. Okay, like, I could fall deeply in love with this person, and my control would be gone. Then what do I do? My emotions would be out of control. This person could hurt me so badly because I might not be able to, I'll be in love. And some people, this really, they cannot tolerate. It's very difficult for them to allow themselves that true falling in love, because it's so much easier and safer to go with that person that, yeah, at the beginning it seems like, oh, there's this chemistry. Believe me, it's not like right off the bat you're thinking this could be my best friend. No. They're like turned on, and the chemistry's there, and the sex, and the this and the that. But there's a lot of other stuff you start picking up. Along the way that this will fizzle out. This will fizzle out. As a matter of fact, it's really funny because some of the things that you get along with so much initially is because you're both a lot alike. You know that thing, oh, we both like the same thing. Okay, now, and let's tie this into what Kerri was talking about. Let's say for that person, okay, that wants to, like what she said, I want this kind of relationship. I need this kind of relationship. This is what I think I need now. Let's say you're this type of person. Hey, I've done my studies. I've got a great job. I'm ready now for the relationship. Maybe I want to start a family. That's it, I've done partying. I've done traveling. I've done all the, I've hit my bucket list on a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do. For example, before I was 30. Why not? But now, you know what I realized? Yeah, okay, that was great. But now I want the relationship because I want to have the white picket fence. Whatever the white picket fence is for you folks. I'm just, whatever. Whether it's with kids, without kids, whatever applies. And in your mind, you kind of have this idea of what you think this person would look like and or be like. And to me, it sounds like her approach is really good. Sometimes for bringing that person to cross paths with you in ways that you might not. Somebody could tell you, well, how do you think you're going to meet that person? Well, maybe a dating service. I'm afraid of who my friends are going to introduce me to, but it's like, okay, well, let's do it her way. And the reason why I say that is that sometimes the universe gives you not what you want, but what you need. Sometimes two different things. Okay, because sometimes when you think what you want, when you say, I want this, it's not really what you need. You might need something a little bit different, or a lot different, for your happiness, for to address really maybe what your soul yearns for, what would really truly be the person that's going to complete you in an important relationship, if that's what you're looking for. And it kind of opens that path, and of course, you take it from there. But yeah, let me tell you something. I could have talked to her for a long time because in another show, maybe I'll do a show about the aspects of familial and hereditary curses and vows, broken and unbroken, where she was talking about. You would think, well, what is one thing? Believe it or not, yeah. And I know some people are going, oh, woo, 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 Marley. Yes, I have seen that. I have seen that happen, where people are affected, and you might think, how so? But yeah, along things that your ancestors, and when I say ancestors, sometimes this could have been some stuff that happened quite a few generations back. That's what I'm saying. This could have been something that occurred, forget it, before even your grandmother was born. In certain areas. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be like something truly dark, like a curse, but it could be certain things that repeat in your family. And it's tied into something along those lines. So her mentioning that in what she was describing, I get it. I've seen that, and I understand why she addresses it. So maybe we'll do a show about that, because I've seen that. I've seen that materialize in a lot of different aspects. So again, guys, thank you for being part of my audience. You're all wonderful. Don't forget to check me out on my Amazon authors page. Marlene Pardo Pellicer, or marlenepardo.com. That's where I have all my books that are up for sale. Like I said, I've been putting out a lot of fiction books for my Sybil Chronicles. I've put out 3. I just came out with a short story one for young adults. It's a horror light anthology. 3 short stories, for that 13 to 18, 19-year-old stuff. I just published that. It's just an ebook on Kindle on Amazon. Also, you can go to Smashwords and find it there. I'm going to have it there probably for free. If you want to look it up. It's called I've Come for My Girl. Yeah. So anyway, guys, take care. Thank you so much. And for sharing this time with me. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.